Hey everybody, wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk a little bit more about the Secure Act. So we have a lot of content out about it, and you've probably read about it or seen it on the news. It's been everywhere, but I do think that most of the press coverage around it has missed one of the main points. And one of the main parts of it, and there's debate as to the merits of this, but one of the main facets of the Secure Act is that it's really a sneaky tax increase. So one of the initial reports of the bill suggested that it's going to be a revenue generator for the federal government. Anytime you see revenue generator, that does mean that somebody is going to pay more taxes. And that someone is going to be anybody who has a large IRA. And so here we have investment news. Thank you to Mark Shoaff and Investment News for including me in this piece. Advisors expecting to see more Roth conversions because of the Secure Act. And you can also find my recent note on it. Pull that up here. And so how the new tax law will affect oil and gas retirees. And so in reality, what this bill is doing is anyone that has 1 or 2 million in pre-tax assets. So think 401k, pension combined. Most retirees are eventually going to roll both into an IRA. But if you're approaching retirement and you have a 7-figure IRA, or you're going to, this is going to be a big deal for you. And I think it's going to dictate most of your financial decisions in your 60s. What I mean by that is the required minimum distribution age. So required minimum distribution is the percentage of your IRA or 401k that you're forced to take each year. And so once you reach age 72, the IRS forces you to take about 4% per year out of your 401k or your IRA. So at 72, that is when the tax bomb begins. And so for a lot of you, if you're retiring with major assets, you might retire at 60, 65, 62, and you might have a relatively low income. You're probably coming out of the highest earning years in your life, but then you retire, and all of a sudden, without that pay, your income is now much lower. Most people make the simple mistake of enjoying those low tax years, and they simply enjoy not paying a whole lot in taxes from age 62 to 70, 72. The problem with that now is you're going to get extremely taxed. Your kids are going to get taxed on a really large scale in the future. And so if you are approaching retirement age, or if you're in your 60s and you have 1 or 2 million or more, especially a lot of energy retirees can get to retirement with 4, 5, 6, 7 million in pre-tax assets, especially if both spouses worked. And so the decisions that you're going to need to make during this time, a couple things. Social Security, heavily impacted. I'm a big fan of at least postponing Social Security for one spouse. Has a couple different benefits. It's almost like an insurance policy, because if you wait on Social Security until you're 70, you're getting the highest benefit possible. Let's pretend that a husband and wife, one spouse earned significantly more than the other spouse during their working years. In that scenario, if the higher earning spouse can wait until 70, that locks up this max Social Security benefit for whoever outlives the other spouse. So there's certainly a benefit to waiting on Social Security anyway, but now that benefit is huge. And the main benefit is not just going to be your larger Social Security payment. The real benefit is you're going to free up your 60s to do more Roth conversions during that period. In other words, I'm not that excited about you taking Social Security income and being taxed on it when you're 65, when instead you could take no income, try to live off of your after-tax assets, and while you're doing that, live off of after-tax assets, don't have any taxable income, so that you can take your pre-tax IRA and convert a large portion of it into Roth. That's going to be a big deal. And I walk that through here in my article. If you haven't checked it out, it's it's live on the site now. But if you think about being age 65, another consideration, not just Social Security, but also Medicare tax. So when you have a high income, you get deemed. You end up paying a little bit more for Medicare. I view that as it's a necessary evil. It is worth it, even if it means that your income is going to be filled up with huge Roth conversions. For some of you, it might make sense to even convert 300,000 a year and fill up the 24% bracket. In my example here, I had a fictional couple that was converting 200,000 every year for 7 years. And so you see the power of that. 1.4 million is what they ultimately were able to take from their pre-tax IRA. They put it into a Roth IRA, and there it grows tax-free forever. Why is this such a big deal? So the Secure Act, the biggest thing that it does is it removes the stretch IRA provision. Some of you may have a little bit of experience with this now. For instance, if you have had a loved one pass away and you inherited their IRA, you might have gone through this. So you inherit the IRA, and if you're the child, you can put it into what is designated as an inherited IRA. And as long as it is coded properly, you are allowed to then take a required minimum distribution every year based on your lifespan. Why is that a big deal? Let's pretend that you inherit an IRA at age 45. Well, at age 45, you might have a pretty decent income. You're really in some of your peak earning years, and being allowed to take out just a small portion of that IRA that you inherit, that allows you to keep your income tax low. Well, with the Secure Act, that has been taken away. You can no longer do that. So if you're a 45-year-old in your peak earning years, you cannot take out a tiny percentage of the inherited IRA. You have to take out the entire IRA within 10 years. And so this is going to provide a pretty large tax burden for you. And I spelled this out a little bit in the article, but ultimately, if you have a large IRA, if you're 62, 65, and you have a few $1 million in pre-tax assets, it's likely that you're going to pass down a substantial IRA as well. And a lot of people like to think that, hey, I earned this money, I'm going to spend it all. I want to spend my last dollar on my last day of life. That's a nice thought, but we can't plan for that. Ultimately, because if you start spending too much too early, you're going to run out of money way faster. And so it's important to make sure you're making sound decisions on your income plan, how much you're taking every year, making sound decisions with your Social Security. What we need to do ultimately is lower your long-term tax bill. Stop thinking about your tax bill simply this year, and instead try to think through, what are my taxes going to be over the next couple of decades? And then what are my kids, when they inherit my account, what is their tax situation going to be? And I've met with lots of different families that have different views on estate planning. Some are really excited to give money to their kids, others are not. But everyone that I've ever talked to agrees they would much rather give their money to charities or their children rather than the government. And now, thanks to the Secure Act, thanks to this new legislation, this is a tax increase, and you need to do a lot of planning around it. Let me know if you have any questions.